Welcome, my friends, to the Dwarf Fortress Iceberg. Major thanks to Redditor user Stained Class, who posted this in Iceberg charts about a year ago. I think it's a great iceberg. I'm sure everybody's familiar. Iceberg is a collection of topics that get more and more esoteric as we go down into the deepest reaches of the iceberg. Today we're going to be doing tiers 1 and 2. If you're very familiar with Dwarf Fortress, you probably know a lot of this, but it's interesting. It's always interesting. That's the great thing about iceberg charts. All right, so right at the top, tier 1, Sky. This is stuff that most of us probably know. All right, losing is fun. So this is the motto. It's in the game as well. It's the community motto and also the developer's motto for how difficult Dwarf Fortress is and how the only way to learn it is to play and lose over and over and over again. Another side effect of this being kind of the motto of the whole game is that fun has a double meaning. Anytime someone talks about fun, especially in all capital letters or with exclamation points around it, which would indicate in some of the ASCII symbol art that the word fun is on fire, it means both fun, as in the challenge of a difficult game, but also in the infuriating, hair-tearing frustration of playing Dwarf Fortress. It is quote-unquote fun. It is its own type of fun. But so that's losing is fun. Stained Class also elaborates. It is used as a euphemism for something that will probably cause mayhem for the player. Mayhem as a synonym for fun. That's a good way to summarize it. Next entry. Urist, whatever. So this is just like, Urist is like the standard. It's like John Smith, Bob. If there's a Russian character and you call him Ivan, I'm trying to think of ones that are relatively inoffensive ones, but maybe I should just stay off that. So it's always Urist because that's like Bob or Dave or John. To dwarves, it means dagger in the dwarven language, just like Jack or John. And then Mick whatever is usually what they're doing. So anytime you're narrating a Dwarf Fortress story, which is very important, like one of the best things about Dwarf Fortress is that you tell stories about the crazy things that happen. It becomes very useful to have a shorthand where you say, this level flooded because Urist minor, that just means like John Doe, John generic minor did this thing, tapped into the ocean and flooded the fortress or something. So that's all, it can be Urist thread spinner. Here's an example. I'm working on a video about like special metals in Dwarf Fortress. And if I wanted to say, I could say like, be careful with your adamantine threads, for example, because Urist surgeon might grab those and use them for a suture. The Hamlet of Tyranny. This was one of the early, like, super famous maps where the stories that came out of it made it very, very famous in the community. People would talk about the crazy things that happened. The main premise, the story of the Hamlet of Tyranny, is that they had a really incredible demon siege. They really tapped into hell and stood up to the demons to their last breath. And even the final dwarves, the ones who were like last to die, were making art about like how we will overcome these demons. It's just cool. It's an interesting story. It's a very epic battle. If you like the big Lord of the Rings battles, it's basically one of those in Dwarf Fortress. Lots of cool, gory things happening and kind of heartfelt narrative that runs through it. Boat murdered. Now, this is a famous one. I cannot go into enough detail. If you want detail, I believe Frederick Knudsen actually did like a several hour at least write-up on Boat Murdered. But basically, a long time ago, there was I think the website still exists in some form, but there was a very famous website at the time called Something Awful. Something Awful could honestly be its own iceberg, but Boat Murdered was shared between about a dozen players, and they were kind of like pen pals. About a dozen people on Something Awful would trade this file back and forth, and it ended up being really crazy. It was really early Dwarf Fortress, so it plays pretty differently from what we would know today, but there were crazy aggressive elephants. There was issues with magma. Each player would play for 1 year in game and then pass it off to the next player, and players would like set up helpful things, set up unhelpful things, set up traps. Sometimes they would just play poorly and make the save a lot harder for the next person. Yeah, goblin sieges, floods, lava. Just a great story, a crazy narrative, and one of those things that Dwarf Fortress players like because it emerges like this very, very, very unique story of a very strange place. Kakame Wemidinade. That's the best thing I'm gonna do on that one. The Elf King of the Dwarves, according to the Dwarf Fortress wiki, is the world's most crossed out only badass elf. Okay. Cool, I never heard this one. So he was a great king of the dwarves. He rose to the top and became the Mountain Home King in a save by Holy Mittens, somebody who goes by Holy Mittens. It has a 70-page thread on Bay 12 Games forum that includes original artwork, all kinds of stuff. He's a big meme, and he's one of the greatest, or as the wiki puts it, he's the only really cool elf that Dwarf Fortress has ever generated. So you can read about him. He's a total badass, considered beloved and awesome despite being an elf, and that's a pretty rare thing in Dwarf Fortress. Unfortunate accidents. So nobles are annoying, and you often don't get to pick who is the noble, and they'll have demands, they'll mess things up, they'll be bad at their job. So unfortunate accidents are ways that you get them killed because you cannot execute them or click on them and have them you can't banish them, you can't just get rid of them. So you have to create a situation with a lever or something weird that happens in their private quarters where lava falls in, or a wild animal gets loose, or they just fall off of something. Just because you can't directly mess with these nobles, but sometimes you want to get rid of them. You will set up a fun, unfortunate accident for them, and that will resolve them. And the only limit is your imagination. But, you can always go on Bay 12 or the Dwarf Fortress wiki if you need ideas. Toady One and Three Toe. So Toady One and Three Toe are the main call signs, nicknames, whatever you want to say, of Tarn and Zach Adams, the brothers who made Dwarf Fortress. By all accounts, nice guys. By all accounts, geniuses of game creation. Without none of us would be here if not for them. So gods of this game, the primary programmers and designers for the whole dang thing. Now with the Steam release, they have a team, and did it all out of their garage for a decade until throughout. I mean, people always saw the potential of it, but anyway, they're the greats. They're the godfathers of this whole thing. Lazy Noob Pack. So this is how I got my start in Dwarf Fortress. Lazy Noob Pack is an excellent, if you want to play Dwarf Fortress for free, and you don't want to figure out the crazy, gooey, almost GUI-less coding mess that is pure raw dogging Dwarf Fortress early versions. The two easy ways to play nowadays are to pay for it on Steam. It boots up like a normal game and it's easy to play. Or you go onto Bay 12 forums, you get the Lazy Noob Pack, and that is the closest thing that exists to a UI that lets you boot it up like a normal game and fiddle with options pretty easily, get it how you want it, and play it without too much hassle. This is honestly, that's how I got my start, was Lazy Noob Pack. It is still free if you want to play those versions. It is the best in terms of graphical options before the Steam version and in terms of playability. So it is a pretty critical utility, especially for new players. It is, the name is a little tongue-in-cheek, of course. Don't feel bad. You are technically a lazy noob, but this is a very unforgiving game, so it's okay. It is honestly a very good utility, and I would recommend it to anybody. Don't feel lazy, don't feel like a noob. It's just a good tool. DF Hack. Now this is a huge utility, and it continues to be supported version for version in Steam, which is really important. If you watch this channel at all, any Dwarf Fortress video of mine, I probably talk about DF Hack because I use it every time I play. It is a utility that lets you hack Dwarf Fortress, lets you change things to make them as you prefer, and just gives you so much quality of life. Little fixes, I would say just like the Lazy Noob Pack, it's almost like a, what do they call it? What's the polite word for it? Like a conjoined twin in terms of software. I wouldn't want at least, Dwarf Fortress without both DF Hack and in earlier versions, the Lazy Noob Pack. Yeah, DF Hack is an incredible utility. They work hand in hand with the main devs, and I would describe it as a pretty critical piece of free software, by the way, that you can add via Steam if you play the Steam version. Or any version, really. Just get the appropriate DF Hack version and plug that right in there. It's always free. It makes a big difference. Dwarf Fortress webcomics. Now I'm going to expand this one a little bit and just talk about the artistic community within Dwarf Fortress in general. Because Dwarf Fortress is, at least previously, was very non-graphical, very symbolic, so you really had to use your imagination. Now I would say there's a lot of official art within the game. It specifically has a style of illustration, but before that it was all the community. So people would draw comics, and again, as mentioned in previous entries, Dwarf Fortress is so narrative-based. It's so emergent narrative-based, where the best part is to tell this crazy story or imagine this really crazy emergent thing that happened. So just drawing those events, drawing those interactions, and telling those little stories, there's a huge community that does, that has for a decade, for decades now, done, hand-drawn, very unique stuff. You can find that on on the subreddit, on Bay 12 forum, on anywhere that Dwarf Fortress people congregate. You'll find OC art and little comics and stuff, and it's just cool. It's fun. It's a good way to just enjoy the game alongside playing it. Krug Smash. So if you know my channel, you probably know Krug Smash, because Krug Smash is one of the earliest, most famous Dwarf Fortress YouTubers of all time. There's also Blind these days. There's a few big Dwarf Fortress YouTubers, but Krug Smash was kind of an OG, and he also brought, because he focused on that narrative aspect, on telling these stories, and he would also work with the artist community to find hand-drawn illustrations. So it would be a very visual and narrative medium when he would present Dwarf Fortress, and so he got a lot of people into it. He really helped to grow the community. So yeah, check him out here on YouTube. I think probably yeah here on YouTube. Tier 2, The Surface. Cat alcohol poisoning. So this is one that I love to tell this story. I think it's really fascinating. People may know already, but basically earlier in the development of Dwarf Fortress, there was a situation where all the cats were suddenly dying of alcohol poisoning. And it took people a second to figure it out. But what it turned out was happening was a really good example of how detailed the simulation in Dwarf Fortress is in general. And how, you get these crazy emergent procedurally generated things because it simulates every surface, it simulates every animal, every creature and their internal organs, and just everything about every point in space and every entity in the game. But so long story short, dwarves drink at the bar, of course at the tavern, and there are various events like getting angry. I think it can happen with mistakes too, but alcohol will spill on the floor. A mug will be smashed against the floor and it gets alcohol everywhere. And the simulation was keeping track of this, was keeping track of where there were puddles of alcohol, and also keeping track of exactly where every animal, everyone's feet were going. It was keeping track of each foot and what it had stepped through. And it was also simulating that cats will, of course, lick their paws when they're grooming themselves. So the game is developed. The game is developed with so much detail that the cats would walk through alcohol on the floor, lick their paw. The game would remember that they had alcohol on their paw. It would then apply a drunkenness token to the cat. But the reason they were dying of alcohol poisoning, was because this emergent behavior hadn't been just thought of yet. It hadn't been accounted for. So the game was assigning them a shot of liquor, a full proper drink, every time they licked their paw with alcohol on the surface of it. So the cats would groom themselves, lick their paw 8 times, have 8 human-sized drinks, and then pass of alcohol poisoning. So they patched that. They fixed it now. Cats just get a little drunk when they lick things off, when they lick alcohol off their paws. Catsplosion / LMAO cat. So Catsplosion refers to the fact that before a lot of things were fine-tuned and before gelding existed, population control for your animals, certain animals, like cats, for example, would breed out of control, and you would have to really deal with just constant new cats or similar creatures. LMAO cat refers to a 4chan comic making fun of another comic that I can't show because it uses a naughty 4chan word, but it just about I guess at the time the community was making comics about oh my gosh, if you have 2 cats, you're going to be drowning in cats. Isn't that so funny? And then this 4chan guy was people got tired of it. And then that's what the LMAO 2 cat is about. It's it's sarcastic, isn't that so funny? So basically just the phenomenon in earlier versions where animals would breed out of control, and the community at the time thinking it's really funny, and then the community eventually getting tired of it and criticizing it as not that funny. Danger Room. Now this is something that you can still build. In earlier versions, it was the meta, it was the preferred strategy to quickly train dwarves. You would have wooden spikes which don't badly injure, especially if they're wearing armor, it doesn't badly injure dwarves, but they constantly have to roll for initiative when the spikes come out. So the spikes are always popping out of the floor while dwarves train, and that adds shield using, armor using, dodging experience constantly. This was the fastest way to get dwarves trained up in this. it's since then it's been tweaked, it's been kind of patched. You don't have to build a danger room, although you're welcome to. It's fun. Hardcore carps. This is one I haven't heard of. Reading from this write-up, one of the oldest and well-known quirks of the game in prior versions of the game, on top of being 2/3 the size of a normal dwarf and aggressively, I have heard of this actually, aggressively athletic in the water, carps also had teeth that could inflict 3 times as much damage as an unarmed dwarf's fist, and so could dispatch an unarmed and unarmored dwarf. For example, a fisherman or anybody who happened to just be in the river, carps would take him down without issue. They were, reading again, they were also strangely aggressive for fish, something which was kept from many releases because it was funny. Toady himself said about carps, "I think I made fish too hardcore." Mermaid bones. Mermaid bones is the first entry that we see to touch on the truly twisted nature of some of the Dwarf Fortress community. This is another one I'm not that familiar with, so we're reading together. In older versions of the game, the bones of mermaids were extremely valuable, whether made into jewelry or sold outright. This made sense as mermaids are considered rare, almost cryptid-like, and only available in certain embarks. This led to some in the community to make money generators out of them, which mainly involved chaining 2 adult mermaids in a room together, filled with water flowing down into a secondary room with a grate for drainage. These mermaids would create offspring, as do any 2 creatures from within a certain distance of each other, which would then flow into the drowning chamber and proceed to suffocate. I guess suffocate on the air. So this write-up says drowning chamber, but it would be more of a reverse drowning chamber because you're separating the offspring into out of the water. You're basically straining them out of the water. So just to clarify that. But they would suffocate. The dwarves would then harvest this mermaid child for its bones, and the cycle will continue indefinitely. This is especially noticeable for being so reprehensible that it made even Tarn Adams himself disgusted, who promptly cratered the value of mermaid bones in-game to prevent this practice from continuing in later versions. Still, that might be a fun, cruel legacy project to build. Now I'm thinking about all the kinds of little structures you could build to generate bones. Very interesting. That's giving me something to think about. Elven cannibalism. Elves have great respect for natural life, considering plant life to be the most sacred of them all. Angry at other civilizations killing trees, interestingly, they consider killing animals only acceptable as self-defense, but wholeheartedly accepts the devouring of enemy combatants. Looking in Legends mode shows that an elven combatant will sometimes devour the other person they were fighting with when they win. In spite of this, elves refuse to butcher and consume intelligent beings under other conditions. This cannibalistic behavior added to the player's dislike of elves, despite goblins being potentially cannibalistic too, even in other contexts than killed enemies. Other interesting elven ethics include lying and oath-breaking being considered as offenses punishable by exile. So just more of elves being total weirdos in this game, having very strict rules, but kind of being psychos about it in general. If you're still with me, just a friendly reminder to like and subscribe so I can do more of these videos, really trying to grow this channel. And a good turnout on this video means I'll be able to do the whole tier list, and it can really be a good series. All right, right back into the content. Keys, K-E-A-S. Are a species of large parrot living in the mountains of South Island in New Zealand, as well as in many regions in a Dwarf Fortress world. Now, if you've played enough, you've seen these. It's a common type of bird, and is basically, you know when you get the alert where it says, like, there are mischievous or thieving animals in the area? They're one of those. They're thievious, mischievous. Yeah, it says here they'll steal cloth, gem, metals, stacks of things, food. And then there's also Kia men and giant keys. I'm sorry, keys or Kia? Kias, confirmed. All right, so everything I just said, but every time I say keys, it's actually Kias. So Kias, it can be just the bird, just the large parrot. It can be Kia men. It can be giant Kias, but they're all super klepto. They're all thievious, mischievous. And that's all. You got to keep an eye out for them. Tholtig Cryptbrain of the Waning Diamonds was a legendary dwarf queen heroine found in Legends mode, with an obscenely high kill count of 2,341 kills, mostly elves. She has been canonized as one of the greatest heroes of Dwarf Fortress by the community, along with Kakame, the Elf King, as we discussed earlier. Asix, another hero canonized by the community. Despite being a simple, ordinary cave swallow man, with just a wooden spear and a wooden shield, he managed to kill a forgotten beast and to severely wound 2 others, who he would have killed if they weren't bugged, before flying off to live with the dwarves. He was eventually slain during an ambush by a goblin lasher wielding a silver whip. That's cool. He kind of sounds like my guy, my Grackle Birdman. Just a brave bird warrior. Should add Grackle Birdman to the Iceberg. Putnam, the 3rd member of the development team and 2nd Dwarf Fortress developer. Putnam was originally a DF modder. Around the beginning of 2022, the Tarn brothers started to publicly discuss the possibility of hiring a new programmer during interviews. Shortly after the premium release at Steam, Putnam was hired as the third member of the Dwarf Fortress team. So basically, yeah, after the brothers Tarn, the next person to join the team as a main dev. Clowns and circus. If you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know, of course, clowns are demons and the circus is hell. And it's a way, back before Dwarf Fortress got relatively mainstream on Steam and everybody knew what it was about, that was a way to couch and code your language to talk about endgame spoilers in front of newbies without spoiling the fact that if you dig too greedily and too deep, you tap into hell and clowns come out. Dwarf Therapist. Dwarf Therapist is something that is a mod utility that exists within DF Hack these days. I think originally it was its own utility, but it's rolled into DF Hack these days. Basically lets you dig deeper into your dwarves' feelings, see exactly like where their happiness and personality stuff is coming from. And you can also like remove stress. I use that a lot. So like if your dwarves are going to have a tantrum spiral or something, which actually we're about to talk about, you can stop that with Dwarf Therapist. You can just enter a few hack instructions and have all the dwarves perfectly blissfully happy instead, even if bad stuff has happened to them. Tantrum spiral. Relatedly, this next entry. Unhappy dwarves have 3 kinds of mental breakdowns. One being throwing a tantrum. Tantruming dwarves will cancel any job they may be doing at the moment and will start misbehaving, which includes throwing items around, starting fistfights with the possibility of injury, toppling and destroying buildings, or hurting pets. One tantrum is fine, but if the dwarf pisses off other dwarves such as by destroying a masterwork they produced or worse, injuring or killing someone they care about, these dwarves may start tantrums themselves, causing in turn even more dwarves to throw tantrums, which generally ends up in a fortress ending tantrum spiral, one of the most frequent and famous fortress ending scenarios. All right, loyalty cascade. This is an interesting one. Loyalty cascades are a bug happening when faction members end up attacking each other. The conflict will escalate into a full civil war, hence Toady1 referring to it as the Civil War bug. You may have also seen it referred to as such. There's also a fix, by the way, in DF Hack. There's a specific fix that it's a very rare occurrence and increasingly rare in the Steam version, but if you do get it, and I think I did get it once and I managed to make a video and show it. Basically, for example, if one of your dwarves turns into a werebeast and you send your military to kill them when shapeshifted, if they turn back into normal before being killed and then are assaulted by your military, this may cause a loyalty cascade. So basically any situation like that where like something happens, some kind of aggro hiccup causes what would normally be 2 dwarves from your fortress who are basically always on the same side unless there's some kind of criminal situation going on, like a tantrum or something. Tantrums, I think, can also, under certain circumstances, cause loyalty cascades. But basically, it will confuse all the other dwarves because the dwarf will be like, hey, you killed my sister for no reason. I'm going to kill you. And then that guy, the first guy who aggroed in a anomalous way, like, for example, dealing the killing blow after Werebeast has already turned back to normal, then it's like, hey, well, you killed my husband. And then the wife comes in and kills that first guy, and it becomes like it's another great example of like emergent procedural complex behavior, because, I mean, that happens in real life where, the Hatfields and the McCoys, where there's some misunderstanding and then it's a war to the end. Anyway, it is technically a bug. Quantum stockpile. A quantum stockpile is an exploit allowing the player to store an unlimited number of items in a single tile. Quantum stockpiles, or QSPs, can make for super efficient storage, allowing more compact fortresses, shorter hauling routes, more efficient manufacturing flows, and stock taking at a glance with look. So yeah, I mostly like them for space. I like to do like these big open-air stockpiles. But let me just explain, because maybe that doesn't make sense on its own. Basically, garbage dumps allow you to stack items vertically on top of each other forever for the purposes of dealing with trash, but you can basically misuse a garbage dump, make it a single square, and then claim that things are trash such that they stack infinitely in the trash, but then you put them in like an actual stockpile where dwarves go to get some, wood or something. Say it's a wood stockpile. They go there, and then you just undesignate the infinite stack of trash wood. You say, oh, no, actually, that's not trash anymore. And then the dwarves can pull off that infinite pile. It just really saves space. It's an efficiency hack, an efficiency glitch, rather. Yeah, leave in the comments if I didn't explain that well. It is pretty easy to set up. It's basically just misusing trash stockpiles to stack things. Divination dice. This is one I hadn't heard of. This is one I don't know about. It says, introduced in version 0.4701, dice are an item randomly found in religious, i.e. not for mega beasts, shrines located throughout the world, with several able to spawn at monasteries. They can be picked up and rolled to divine the will of the gods relevant to the dice, granting a variety of possible effects, both positive and negative, from a holy artifact to bad luck, including a temporary transformation into an animal. So that's awesome. So that's an adventure mode thing, I guess. You can find magic dice that do things that are kind of like randomizers, reality randomizers. That's really cool. Mist generator. We've talked a lot about this. Mist generator is basically a waterfall, especially artificially created waterfalls, anything like that, anything where dwarves are walking through it and there's just constantly mist. Because that's like one of the best ways. Even if a dwarf like watched someone die and is really uncomfortable, they don't like their bedroom or their dining hall or the food that's served, if they're getting constantly like misted by water falling from one Z level to another Z level, that will generate enough happy thoughts that like the average dwarf will be like, this is good, this is still a good situation. Yeah, I have lots of videos about mist generation and waterworks, so check that out if you'd like to know more. All right, mysterious dungeons. Mysterious lairs, dungeons, and palaces are a type of adventure mode site added during the adventure mode beta for the premium version, then in version 51.xx. So yeah, we've talked about this in the magic update. This is part of it, like more about gods and magical items and things like that. As the write-up says, they are related to a god, very often guarded by dangerous guardians, and you can find very precious treasures in these, like divine material weapons, armors, clothes, or magic substances. So yeah, just a new part of adventure mode, like kind of a reason to play adventure mode, basically dungeon crawling, and you can get cool loot from beyond the stars and stuff like that. All right, and then last one for tiers 1 and 2. Again, if you made it this far, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. Feel free to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if I explained anything wrong, or if you think anything could be added to this iceberg, we could even build it out. My understanding is these icebergs are community building activities, so yeah, let me know what you think. Last entry for tier 1 and 2. Oh, and I guess I'll be back, ASAP next week probably with tiers 3 and 4 or something equivalent. We're going to get this whole thing done, and it should be a good source of content. But without further ado, our last entry is Armok. And you should know that name if you've ever booted up Dwarf Fortress. It should ring a little bell. Because Armok is the god of blood. And this is the name of the creator deity in the lore of the original Slaves to Armok God of Blood game. You might notice that Dwarf Fortress is Slaves to Armok 2, because the Toady team, the brothers Tarn, they made like a proto-Dwarf Fortress originally called Slaves to Armok, and then this is actually the second iteration. It's technically a sequel, but so we're focused on Armok for now. We'll get into more of that later, I'm sure. But Armok, the god of blood, is just about the only constant in these chaotic random universes. A general sense of conflict keeps Armok appeased. When the universe becomes too boring, it is set on the anvil of creation to be reforged. So that's kind of the losing is fun thing. Like, you are Armok, aren't you? Because you're the godly player who's just causing all kinds of crazy bad stuff to happen. That's interesting. Crazy, bad, but interesting stuff. Anyway, the destruction of the world by Armok will arise inevitably in most game worlds. As civilization spread and the frontier closes, the world will start to look homogeneous. Armok, looking upon this decadence and disgust, will reform the world. Basically, when the universe has become too boring, it will be changed. Despite the above description, Armok is actually completely absent from Dwarf Fortress proper. He does not appear as a deity available for worshipping, nor does 21 intend to add him into the game. Not that it stops players from referencing him, especially when something extremely fun is ensuing. Although he never doesn't exist, and will never exist at all in the vanilla game Stricto Sensu. That's a phrase. Stricto sensu is how they did this write-up. And I've never actually heard that phrase, but it makes sense. Armok is the most unanimous part of the player-based fanon as the game's universal constant, creating and destroying all Dwarf Fortress worlds for his own amusement. And again, you are basically Armok, god of blood, just making interesting things happen. And yeah, thanks for joining me. We will do tier 3, shallow waters, and deeper still. As soon as I have time to do it. Leave me some comments, leave me some positive vibes, so I can stay focused and motivated and get the whole iceberg out. Thank you all for joining me. Love you.